So nowadays, everybody seems to pick their cell phone based on how good the camera is. This is a Samsung A15, and the camera is trash. The camera is about as good as this, which is not saying a whole lot. But this is an older phone. I'm not trying to go deep in on technology anymore in my life. I'm stepping back. I thought it'd be fun to talk about camera stuff because there is fun to be had in film cameras, and just kind of looking back through some of the generations here that I have in my collection still, and I think are worth mentioning. All right, well, in front of me you see the array of cameras we have. We have the cell phone that everybody has. We have an early Kodak EasyShare CX7 7300, Kodak PicPro FZ45, Fujica SLR film camera, and my Pentax ME Super SLR, which I really enjoy using. I should also have in this picture a digital SLR, but unfortunately I don't own one anymore to add it to this video. So just imagine there's like a Nikon or Canon or Sony or something sitting right here, because, well, I don't have one to share. But why should you still have a physical camera? Why not just use your cell phone? Well, cell phones take good pictures. Modern cell phones do this. This one's quite a bit older. This is a Samsung Galaxy A15, and it's kind of crap, but it was a cheap cell phone. So, you know, cell phones take good pictures, but they also are basically programmed to enhance images for your phone screen versus, let's say, printing paper or a computer screen. Sometimes you can, if you've ever looked at pictures you've taken on your phone and then you looked at them on a computer screen, you're like, it doesn't look as good on the computer. And it's because of the programming inside the phone to enhance it for that display. It's very similar when editing digital photos. You can enhance the sharpness and contrast and all that, and you can also do it like on your export settings to enhance it for a screen or a phone or for photo paper or etc. You know, it's the same thing except you're manually doing it on a actual camera, like a digital shot or even a film shot. Maybe you're editing digitally, so you can enhance sharpness and stuff like that through a camera like this, to make it look better on the display. But for the most part, this is a modern pocket camera. This is a cheap $100 camera that I think a lot of people are going to be tempted to buy if they decide, you know what, I'm done with smartphones. I want to go to a feature phone, and to have a camera, I'll just buy a cheap pocket camera. This camera is about equivalent to my crappy Samsung. It's not a great camera, but it gets the job done, kind of thing. I don't use it ever, and it's not because it's digital or anything like that. I'm not pleased with it. It doesn't have like an actual viewfinder. You have to use the screen, and there's just something about looking through a viewfinder like that, you know, window over the lens. It just makes it better for me. I don't know. Maybe I'm old-fashioned in that way. So, you know, this is a modern digital camera. Back in the early 2000s, this was a modern digital camera. This is a Kodak EasyShare CX7300. It is a whopping 3.2 megapixels, which is hilarious to think now. Like, most people's front cameras on their phone is 5 megapixels now, and makes a better image than this does. But it is a decent little camera for the time. It didn't offer much. You know, you had an auto mode, you had off, you had video, you had a portrait with a flash. That was it. That was the only option. This has at least a few more like scene selections and stuff to help get more from the camera, but this was pretty much basic. However, this used to be the affordable pocket camera. This was only $100 or so in its era for this one. Now, the Kodak EasyShare line, I actually used quite a bit of these cameras. I used some that look like a smaller version of this Pentax, you know, about half the size of it, or a third, 2/3 of the size of it. But it had a big digital zoom lens on it, and it had some manual controls, and it's actually what really pushed me into moving into real photography, was using that camera. I'd actually love to find another one just for the collection, not really to use, but as a shelf piece, because it was the camera that pushed me to go into a real camera. But, you know, this camera, it in a sense, it was designed to fail so that cameras of tomorrow could be better. So this camera leads to a better camera later down the line. You know, early digital cameras were awful. In fact, film cameras still produce better images than this did when this was brand new. It's just the technology and the quality and the image sensors and all that stuff. It just wasn't there yet. But you gotta start somewhere, and that's what kind of led to progression. But one of the reasons I wanted to do this video is to talk about shooting film, because I've really been enjoying it. So I'm going to roll some digital pictures here, or not really digital, they are shot on film but digitalized. I'm going to put some of those pictures on the screen here so you don't have to look at my janky static display. And these are pictures I've taken with one of the many film cameras I have laying around and have been experimenting with, but just to kind of share with you. Now, I've been enjoying shooting film because it takes away that instant satisfaction, and there's a delayed gratification that comes with it. And Hank Hill is my spirit animal, and he once said, well, Peggy, you know how I love delayed gratification. It's interesting because I have 72 exposures between two cameras, between this one and the Olympus XA I also own, which is just out in the truck. And I've been more selective about the pictures I've taken, instead of like a digital where I just take it and delete it if I don't like it. This, I pay for every shot, basically. You know, a roll of film costs money. Developing it costs money. It costs about $1 a shot sometimes. It's still cheaper in the short run compared to buying a, you know, $1,000 digital camera, $1,000 lens, paying $100 plus a year for editing software, etc., etc. But, you know, every shot does cost money, so you tend to be a little bit more careful with it, and you don't want to waste the shots. So, yeah, it takes a while to go through film sometimes. Other times, I just snap shots off like they were free. It just all depends on my mood and what I'm seeing on the time and all that, but I really do enjoy shooting with film. Besides the delayed gratification, there's also a charm that comes with film that you just can't duplicate on digital. People try to throw filters on their digital images to make it look retro or old-fashioned or whatnot, but honestly, the clarity and the lack of imperfections kind of give it away that it's filtered. And with film, because it's, you know, material and not digital, there's tends to be imperfections that show up, be it light leaks because your camera seals, you know, the seal that keeps the light from coming in on the backing of the camera isn't what it, you know, is wearing out, and it's letting just tiny little bits of light in there, and it's kind of getting on the film and hurting it. Sometimes that gives it charm. Sometimes it ruins everything, but sometimes it gives it just a little bit of charm. Sometimes you get double exposures from where maybe it didn't advance right and it had a hang up. Sometimes you get just weird film, like the film had a defect. And also at the same time, which I just recently had this happen to me, and it kind of sucked because there was a couple images I really wanted off of that roll, or at least to see them, but sometimes they get screwed up in developing and the whole roll goes to waste. So there is a downside to it, don't get me wrong, there's always a chance that something screws up, but it is satisfying when you get good pictures from a film camera, and just because they have that charm. It's nice to slow down in life and kind of go back and do things a little bit more simple, and that's the whole point of this channel, is to just kind of show that and to talk about it. But until you experience it yourself, you'll never really know. I mean, I'm not fully against staying with digital stuff. I mean, I've got my fancy dancy computer here. I'm been in the process of converting DVDs to digital so that I can have them on a hard drive and watch them, on my own home network. So, I'm not fully against it, but there are things in life, like photography. It's a lot of fun to kind of step back and do things the old-fashioned way. You appreciate things more. In the process, like my cell phone. It's nearly ending its lifespan with me and will be downgraded when I can afford to buy a new cell phone and change to a different plan and all that stuff. When I can afford to do that, yeah, this thing's gone. I'm about done with smartphones. So going back to a feature phone, it's simpler, it's not as connected to the world, and it allows me to live in the moment more, which is a good thing. I don't really know what all to else add to this video other than say adios, amigos.